Okay, so thanks so much. Appreciate you guys coming by. So maybe we can, to kick off a few things here, maybe we can talk a little bit, Joe, first a little bit about how broad and wide mobile has become at MTV. I know that you've been a partner of Netbiscuits for quite a while, and you guys have had acceptance across a lot of different of the business units. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the success that you guys have had so far.
Sure. Can you guys hear me? Yes? Okay. So one thing to call out also is that Viacom is a lot of other brands as well, as Nickelodeon, as VH1, as Comedy Central, as well as MTV, which is sort of one of the most known. Mobile is extremely important. It has been for a long time. We know that a large percentage of our audience is there and consuming all of our content through there. A large percentage of our traffic comes from social, comes from search, and users are doing those two activities very often on mobile. So it's a big focus. We have a pretty wide set of products that we offer across the mobile spectrum to get all of that content in front of people. And it's very important. It has been, and it will continue to be.
And you've been able to see monetization from your sites and acceptance across the different brands within your organization?
Yep. So we've built an ad-supported business out of mobile web and mobile apps, selling banners, selling rich media, selling against video. We've also built a premium business out of apps, and then the sort of mixture of free and in-app purchase type of business within the application space. So those are all new businesses as of the last 5-6 years, and they're growing businesses and ones that we see as pretty significant. We know that mobile is a really close tie-in to the television experience. We know that lots of people during the premieres of our shows are interacting with content in some way on mobile, and we're capitalizing on that.
Great. And Rick, maybe you can go into a little bit about how Akamai is helping publishers like Joe to with their growing mobile needs.
Sure. So with Akamai, it's really about situational performance. So we actually look into what is the network condition for the end users. So they have poor network connectivity. How do we actually help with performance if somebody's on Wi-Fi? How do we help with content, whether it's video or standard web page downloads, in terms of accelerating that, and really simplifying the whole workflow and taking the massive amount of complexity that's growing within mobile. So you have different form factors with different screen sizes. You have different experiences, so touch versus feature phones. So we take all that intelligence, wrap it up in the platform, and make it easily available to end users in the most optimal way possible.
Great. So it seems as if, Joe, that your business has grown to a point where mobile is a significant of importance within the organization. And when you have certain, let's call it traffic spikes, whether those spikes could be due to new releases of phones or newsworthy events, whether that happens unexpectedly or perhaps through planned events that you guys do on TV. Maybe you could tell a little bit about how you've dealt with it in the past, and maybe you could talk a little bit in detail about how you dealt with the need to have backup on the recent music award event.
Sure. So I'll give you a few examples of just how our content can be somewhat unpredictable, and the consumption of our content can be somewhat unpredictable. So one of our highest traffic days ever was about 3 years ago, the day that Michael Jackson died. And obviously not an event you can predict, so we didn't know to scale up server capacity or anything like that. And we saw slowdowns on our sites and some outages. We also, on the Comedy Central side, we have some shows based on comedians. So if anybody knows Tosh.0, he's a comedian he's really active in social media. He tweets a lot, and sometimes the links he tweets get clicked on a lot, and those can cause significant traffic boosts for us. So those are a couple examples of unpredictable traffic spikes. We also have a number of big award shows like the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, the MTV Music Awards, the MTV Movie Awards. These are things that we can predict. So in the past, we've been able to do some things to get our sites ready for the scale we think will hit on that day. And in some cases, it hasn't been enough. We've seen slowdowns and sometimes been surprised by the amount of traffic. So in the past, we've struggled, and been a little nervous during those events, and one of the things we recently did is work with Akamai to help speed up those sites and give us a bit more confidence in their load times.
Great. And the need for this acceleration solution was to maybe just to enumerate some of those surety of service.
Yeah.
Speed.
So what we did, we partnered with Netbiscuits and with Akamai to cache our mobile sites. It's something that on the desktop side has been done for a long time, not something we had done on mobile. And a couple of things we had done in particular to the MTV VMA site, which the VMAs just happened a few weeks ago. A couple of things we did to that site which we expected to really increase the load were, one, we built a responsive site, and I'll clarify what I mean when I say responsive. We built a responsive site that went from phone up to tablet. The desktop site, the www.site, was still physically a separate site for reasons that are sort of related to content management and challenges around responsive. But we knew that because of that, more people would be able to consume this content. We also know that a ton of people would find our content through search or through social, and we didn't want users to have to think about, am I sharing the mobile URL, the desktop URL, what does that even mean? So we built a pretty robust service that knows the desktop and mobile equivalent of those two URLs and routes users accordingly, so that we could capture all of that traffic down to the detail level. So if you searched for one of the category vote options on the MTV Video Music Awards on your phone and you were given a desktop URL, you were routed to the mobile equivalent. So those two things we knew were really going to increase traffic. So it was 3 weeks before the event when we started talking about making this change, and I'm surprised we decided to do it a little bit, but knowing the scale that we were going to expect, we thought it was worth investigating, and the more we found out about it, the more we thought it was a good idea to pursue, and it worked out. It went really well.
Great. So I guess that 3-week lead time goes to a little bit of the simplicity and ease of being able to integrate with Akamai and Netbiscuits on this.
Yeah, it was pretty seamless. We did a ton of testing. We were understandably nervous, and it went really well. And we've only moved one of our sites. We have 30 others that we're looking to move, so we're looking to replicate that plan for all of them. And that's the plan, and we look for it to be as simple as it was for the first time.
Rick, for maybe some of the people in the audience that don't have sites quite as big as the Viacom network, maybe you could talk a little bit of some of the benefits of edge caching with Akamai, even though they're not that big, but maybe some.
Yeah, so the whole goal of Akamai is really, again, from an optimization standpoint. So how do you provide the best end user experience to the end users when they're requesting content? So whether you're Viacom or whatever brand, or you're shopping online, you're watching a movie, one of the ways that we actually benefit our customers is through our global platform. And with that, think of it as instead of building out your own FedEx, where you have to get your own trucks, you have to figure out the logistics and move those physical packages, we're doing the same exact thing, but actually doing it from a digital perspective. So we actually have our servers in all these different locations around the world, something like 72 different countries. For mobile specifically, we have a mobile platform where our edge servers are actually right by the mobile gateways. So where you're onboarding and offboarding off the public internet onto the radio networks, our edge servers are right there. So as much content as we can actually cache, so closest to the end user or closest to the mobile gateways, that's actually improving the experience for the end users from a performance standpoint. And then from the publisher or the content provider standpoint, as Joe was talking about, from an offload perspective and kind of handling the big traffic spikes that you may know about or you may not know about, we're offloading that by serving it all from Akamai's platform and minimizing the amount of content actually going back to the data centers.
I think that we took a look at some of those log files, and we were able to see how much, I guess a lot of it has to do with the ability for Netbiscuits to optimize to a number of different devices, but maybe talk a little bit about the percentage that we had to go back to the server. It was a rather high
in
rate.
aggregate, I think it was in the very high 90s. There are different parts of the website. So there's the kind of base page, which is typically dynamic. So through our partnership with Netbiscuits, we're actually able to do a very nice integration. So that actually, I think before we did this integration, the the cache offload or origin offload was going to be much less because we couldn't actually cache the HTML. But with this integration that we did through our engineering groups, we actually able to raise that quite substantially.
Yeah,
and the challenge there with caching the HTML, if you guys are into mobile and NetBiscuits clients, or have just built a mobile website, you probably know that different HTML and JavaScript gets served to different devices, or you should do that in order to optimize your sites to work well. So figuring out how to cache that was a challenge, and it wasn't something we had ever done before. So instead of caching one version of a page, you're caching multiple versions of a page. And so that, I think, was the most different thing about this arrangement.
Yeah, and it was able to, and while you were serving these pages, and it was during this event, you were updating the page constantly, or was it?
So the whole site was built to be automated and dynamic, but constantly pumping new news stories, new photos, new videos through that experience on these different platforms, and it ran very smoothly all throughout. I think we overall were able to shave a couple of seconds of load time off of the site, and that stayed consistent through the lead up to the event, and then throughout the event and the day after. And that wasn't something we had seen in the past for those events.
So this shaving of load time, maybe Rick, maybe you could talk a little bit about what that means a little bit more practically to maybe just publishers like MTV, but also the influence it might have on commerce as well.
Sure. So just being able to cache and offload that content, again, from a performance standpoint, so if your web pages are downloading faster to mobile devices, you'll obviously get more page views, so that in turn is ad revenue right there. So being able to do that reliably as well is also a big deal. So as Joe had mentioned, it was very smooth throughout the process. There weren't any hiccups that we're aware of. So from a performance standpoint, the revenue generation from that is great. And then also for commerce companies, who are also a very large part of Akamai's customer base, we do a lot with everything leading up to the holidays. So companies, your J. Crews of the world, all the way, so the internet retailer kind of 500, if you will, most of those companies actually use us throughout the year, as well as especially throughout the holidays, because the last thing they want is to have an outage or to have slow performance when people are actually shopping. So Cyber Monday is a big deal. If the performance is bad, they're in store, they're looking for doing searches, doing other things while they're actually at the point of sale looking to buy something. If that experience is bad, they're going to bail out and go to somebody else to buy that same product.
Right, and that's the other side, the sort of less measurable side of the motivation to do this. We knew about the potential traffic spikes, we knew about potential outages, but we also were really considering the user experience. And Adobe put a report out recently, and Ray, if I misspeak, just wave at me. But one of the things they did, they surveyed a bunch of users and asked if there was one thing that could be changed to improve the experience you have with a particular mobile site, what would it be? And they segmented based on financial sites, travel sites, e-commerce, and media consumption, which is the one I think we fit into. And the number one thing that people said was improve speed. So 2 seconds may seem small, but it's pretty significant when users on mobile are trying to access content quickly, and we found it to be really important.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we've heard before about when we go into the discussion on hybrid versus or native apps versus hybrid apps or even mobile web. We always have this performance issue. So, what do you think the impact of something like this product could have on that decision that's made? Does it eliminate? Does it reduce it? What do you?
Oh, I see. So whether or not to go native versus
or the benefits that you can get.
Well, I mean, it's definitely something we're going to pay attention to. So we're a few weeks into this new setup on the site, and we want to see over the course of a number of months, do we see traffic increases just because things are loading faster and people are consuming more content. So it's definitely something that we will be watching. Whether it means mobile web is a better choice than apps, I think we typically make that decision based on other factors, like the use cases involved, the necessity to have device access and things like that. But it could be a consideration.
And Rick, are you seeing an impact with social media and spikes in traffic. Sometimes you can't really tell. I know that Joe mentioned a little bit about one of these comedians that are tweeting, but are you seeing that is a factor?
Yeah, absolutely. These personalities, your Lady Gagas, your Tashas, all the big personalities have tons of Twitter followers. President Obama, anytime it used to be a kind of a joke in the kind of tech world where someone would put a link up in one of the tech sites and it would drive a lot of traffic, then it would take your site down. And that same thing really happens with a lot of the entertainment sites and the personalities because they do something. So sorry, Lindsay Lohan, but every time she gets in a car accident or steals something or gets caught drinking, that we can actually see that per customer, how much traffic that's driving amongst the entertainment sites. So absolutely, that's the real-time nature of the web right now is really benefited Akamai as a company, but also for publishers being able to handle these spikes and unpredictable events, such as, I think that's actually the largest event we saw too, was the Michael Jackson, his passing. So, and before that, I think it was actually the Pope's funeral, and that was, probably 10 years ago now.
Wow. Yeah, so I think that it's, and sometimes when these events happen, we find that it kind of can be surprising because all of a sudden people are rushing to their mobile device to find out more news, and that's when you really find out how many people are accessing or depending on mobile to be able to for their information.
So even one experience we had here in New York when we had that earthquake I can't remember how many months ago that was, but the amount of traffic we saw, because everybody around the world was tweeting, maybe not around the world, but often people were just tweeting so much, the phone lines were tied up, and then the next place people went to the web to find their latest news. So these are the kind of unpredictable things that happen all the time. And the biggest thing to understand is when you aren't prepared for these unpredictable traffic spikes and you have site outages, you have long load times, there's actually revenue that you're actually losing out on because you're not serving those ads. So that's something really big to think about. And also from a brand perspective, being able to be that site that's always up and running, that's always has the latest, freshest news, always has the richest content. They're the one, we see those as the winners all the time.
Yeah, I agree, and that's what we've really seen is that this is becoming a more and more important thing to be able to consider as you're doing your architecture of the sites, is to be able to consider what happens if you do have the success that you're all planning for, and you do get all of the brands on board. It makes it even more important to be able to perform when you start to become under a microscope a little bit more, and the expectations are high, and what you wind up having is an Akamai type solution to be a backup, and then that's where really what some new and innovative ways that Netbiscuits has been able to put this forward.
I think it's important just to point out that it's not just Viacom-sized companies; it's everyone down to kind of mom and pop shops as well. Because when you're working with Akamai as a platform for delivering to either your desktops or to mobile devices, you're really saving money in the fact that you don't have to build out a larger infrastructure. It's actually kind of an on-demand pay-per-drink type situation. So you don't have to build out your data centers and your origins just for those unexpected times in traffic. You actually can lean on us to actually provide all the scale that you need.
Yeah, and some of the things that we've been able to do is to create virtual servers that are able to minimize the upfront investment that has to be made, and to be able to spin up these virtual servers based on some of the work and some of the offloading of the traffic that come up to Akamai. So there's a number of ways to be able to kind of prepare for these events and these unexpected success that you might have. Does anybody have any questions out there before we continue more? So just raise your hand and interrupt as we go, because we want to make sure that we have any, we were able to address everything. Joe, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the future type ideas that you have that you think that may impact traffic in the future, and some of the new kind of innovations that you're thinking about going down the road to make things more efficient.
Yeah, so one of the things that's important to us, and we, for the most part, achieved it with the VMA site, is just having all the content available on all platforms at all times. And there are some limitations there, but mostly due to rights issues and things like that. But from a technology perspective, there's no reason that people can't access all of your content everywhere. And that's important to us. And my VMA example is a good one where people were consuming all of this content. They were voting, they were looking at photos, they were watching videos all throughout. And it was important that they could get this everywhere, on their tablets, on their phones, on their desktop. And it was important for us to have a consistent experience across all of those. So we know that all of those just create more consumption. We're also looking at sort of feature level things like improved ways of browsing through photos. We know that that's a really popular activity on mobile. It's very easy, it drives a lot of traffic. It's also a good ad opportunity because you have a user engaged with 5 to 10 photos at a time. And that's a lot of activity that gets generated on a site. So we're looking to do more of that and really just create experiences that make it really easy to find the content. Not necessarily loading new pages every time, doing things in page, some of the more traditional web tactics. And we know that requires a little bit more bandwidth and a little bit more speed on the site, and it's important that we can support that.
And just to kind of a trend analysis kind of statistics, so on the Akamai platform, we deliver between 20 and 30% of the world's internet traffic every day. And basically at this point, mobile traffic in terms of page views is about 20% of traffic. We expect that to actually cross over to more mobile than desktop traffic in 2015. And it may even be more accelerated than that. So we're seeing the huge sea change, and hopefully we'll prepare everyone for it.
And are you seeing more media companies coming to you to put their content on, let's say, connected devices as opposed to traditional TV or cable?
Yeah, over the top is definitely a growing area. There's always talk of this cutting the cable, cutting the cord. I don't think we're there yet, but there's lots of new challengers to traditional media, and it's still a fraction of percentage of what we see Viacom and others doing, but we definitely see it out there.
Do you think it's an age thing that, as the younger generation who's used to having the phone and to being able to access it? Do you
mean they want everything for free?
Yeah. Well, the free's always a price because you can have. We heard today that ad rates are high for video on mobile, so it's not necessarily for free, but there's we've seen a trend in the marketplace now where whether you're using Verizon or Time Warner, these MSOs are now offering you the ability to watch events on your mobile device if you log in and verify that you're a subscriber, you're a cable subscriber. Has that been impacting your business, your Akamai?
Yeah, TV everywhere is a pretty big deal. So a lot of the challenge with that is identity management and actually being able to provide somebody with the rights to actually view that content. So that's an area that Akamai is doing a lot of work in. We actually have a TV everywhere product. We work with the cable and MSOs to actually enable that so that you can watch your Time Warner cable, your what have you, whatever MSO out there. So you can watch, really at this point, it's in the home. So it's kind of TV everywhere, but there and there and there, but in the home itself.
Right.
I think we'll get there, and it is being driven by this younger generation. They're definitely, not used to things like feature phones, or they're not used to not being able to get content whenever and wherever they want to. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue to just be driven. It's really business models to support that I think are really the challenge there.
Yeah, the business models to support that, and then the surety of service becomes more and more important as the business model changes and as these trends swing back towards the mobile or the connected devices outside of it.
Right.
Yeah. What do you, Joe? What do you think What do you think that these give me a couple of examples of this integration with Akamai and the Netbiscuits Accelerated product is going to allow you to do in the future with some of your future projects that you're working on?
Well, I think it gives us the ability to just build richer content experiences on our sites. We've always looked at load time on pages and looked at building things in as light a way as we can, and I think we'll still think about that, but it's going to be less of a concern. one of the big things that happens during many of our live events is voting, and we have some voting flows that in the past have sometimes been tailored more towards just speed on the site, and maybe sacrificed a little bit of the user experience, but that's not something that we will consider so much going forward if we know we can rely on a really fast experience in any scenario.
Great, so it gives you more options to be able to do a little bit more of what your vision is without feeling like you're restricted by a bandwidth or load time or surety of service issue.
Right, really focus on the user, focus on meeting that user's need for having a good experience with our content, and not being limited in too many ways.
Yeah, and a better user engagement can lead to more money.
We hope so.
We hope so. Did anybody have a comment? Oh yes, go ahead, Laurel.
Just a couple of things, if you don't mind. One on Akamai is it just layered into everything then so that it can accommodate loads as they happen depending on what happens even just from on site. And two, I'm in the newspaper industry and I've been preaching all content at all times, but separately, I feel like we're not doing a good job of learning what people want and reacting to it, especially in the newspaper industry because we have all this journalistic integrity. So those are some internal battles I've been fighting for a while. But so just wondering how quickly you might be applying what you're learning about usage through your various mobile assets.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to the first one? Or I guess your question is sort of how, can you sort of on the fly deal with the demand
Right,
and
exactly.
Yeah, so that's the whole goal of Akamai is to be an on-demand platform for MTV, Viacom, and others. So and many publishers. I mean, I think publishers in general I think we're the first ones to really experience what we call the flash crowds. Right, a big news event happens, and boom, everyone goes right to whatever their favorite news site is, and you get hammered. And if you go down, that's pretty bad because you're losing all of that revenue at the time when you should be making more revenue because of those big traffic events. So by having Akamai, it's really an always-on situation. So it doesn't make sense to kind of turn us on and turn us off. So you basically, again, are paying by kind of what you're using. So it's a nice model that way.
And your second question, if I can try to restate it, is sort of, are we doing things to capture the sort of a la carte on-demand needs of the user, and how are we reacting to that? And how are we learning from it? Yep, so it kind of speaks to personalization of content, and I can mention two things that we're doing now. So one are just content recommendations. So an old idea that hasn't always been applied on mobile, but Amazon style, if you like this book, you may also like these books. We're doing that for news stories, for photos, for different content collections. And we have an engine that sits in the background that is measuring clicks and correlation to other clicks and pieces of content. And when a user is reading one news story, we try to serve up related content that other users have found interesting by their clicking. So that's one thing. Another thing we're starting to do more of is just site optimization, so general A/B testing. So putting two versions of a feature in front of users and randomly optimizing between the two and understanding what seems to be the better user experience and learning from that, and then pushing towards that. So those are two examples.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? Okay. So in summary, this new product that we kind of tested with Akamai and MTV, it was a tremendous success for Netbiscuits. So Netbiscuits Accelerated is another reason to choose a platform like Netbiscuits, to become faster websites as well as more surety of your service. So if you are thinking of ways to be able to make your sites better or faster, definitely talk to us about leveraging this new product that we have, and you're going to see some things in the press over the next week or two about this. So we want to thank you guys very much for participating in this and sharing your experience with us.
Thank you.